Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to Invictus Launch. I mean, DefenseCon 2953. So yeah, Drake Interplanetary. It is today. Yes, hello, all these people walking around excitedly. Oh, that's nice to see. So yes, Drake Interplanetary. It is DefenseCon, and we get to have a look at the Drake ships. So, for anyone who's curious in terms of lore, what exactly is DefenseCon? Well, basically, in the laws of DefenseCon, it's kind of a jab at the UEE, because, well, the UEE Navy and as well as the Invictus Launch Week. Because while the Invictus Launch Week celebrates the release of new recruits into the UEE Navy, and of course the new recruits fully trained to be sent out into the verse, Drake Interplanetary, DefenseCon is all about what the real people of the state, of the verse are like. People who have to deal with the frontline sort of colonies and whatnot. And the big jab is, by the time the UEE Navy responds to anything, it's already over. But Drake Interplanetary is a reliable and affordable form of security, of dependency, and all of the other words that don't involve duct tape and prayers. But unfortunately will inevitably result in duct tape and prayers. So this particular event is basically a little... For those who just don't care about the lore and just want to sort of see the ships, this is basically a different location for Drake Interplanetary, where you get to look at your favorite Drake Interplanetary ships. And, yeah, it's a pretty nice event. It's not as... to be fair, it's arguably a little bit more glamorous than the other ones, and you also have the ability to get rentable ships sectors with the traveler pads, which is pretty cool. So all of the ships you see in here, you can go and rent here. We also have the obvious nice array of shirts and equipment, which is nice. And here is DefenseCon, quite a large amount of ships in the room, some more famous than others, and some, of course, quite awesome looking than others, unfortunately. I do see the Herald in the background there. But regardless of personal opinions, we will be having a look at all of these vessels. Obviously, some we're not going to go too hardcore into because, well, there is a lot of stuff in here, and if we really go into town, then we'll take all day. So instead, we'll do what we can. I'll do what I can to be as quick and efficient as possible, whilst also talking a little bit more detail about some of the newer ships. Speaking of which, let us start today by talking about the Drake Corsair. So, the Drake Corsair, introduced in patch 3.17.4, is the Drake Corsair is, in my opinion, and do, by the way, put this into the... do have your responses in the comment section. I would like to sort of start a discussion around this, and just get your thoughts as well. The Drake Corsair is a modern answer to expedition ships. So, with the Carrack, you've got, obviously, it's a pretty big and impressive ship. You've got a much bigger cargo space, admittedly. You've got the big, slightly, I'd say, roughly equal size driver hangar, in terms of how it is. And, of course, you do have the, the medical facilities and whatnot. So, yeah, there are certain advantages to the Carrack, but there are also major disadvantages. For example, you don't have the ability to use guns on your ship. You also have to plan out a lot more when it comes to making your ship fly around and stuff. Because if you're wanting to take a serious flight around the system, you're going to need at least 4 to 5 people to man the guns and the different sort of sections of the ship in order to be effective. Whereas with the Corsair, you really only need about 3. The pilot and 2 gunners. And the guns on this particular ship not only point out to defend the ship from assaulters, but also point forwards to provide you additional firepower. So, quite nice indeed. As we make our way towards the rear of the ship, we have a few useful little buttons here and there, but of course, go into the rear of the compartment. So, yeah, the design philosophy around the Corsair is... Again, I feel a bit more modern because... Oh my god. Sorry, I just looked at that and I'm like, oh! I forget how big some of these weapons are. But no, so the thing that I would say about the Drake Corsair that... I said, what I like about it is you don't need to plan out thoroughly ahead when it comes to stuff like this. The cargo bay inside is pretty reasonable sized. You've got enough room for a vehicle. You've got some room for supplies. It is quite effective in terms of what you want to do. And again, not requiring large amounts of things. We also have a number of components inside, which on a rare occasion I've actually started to. I'm going to try and, from going forward, I'm going to try and really harken in towards my ship research. Because on ships I don't know 100%, not utilized, or they're very new, I'm still iffy. So I'm going to try and really do more research into that. So for example, with the Great Corsair, we have 4 size 2 radars. That helps. Size 1 scanner. I'm not exactly sure if that's really applicable, so I'll go for the stuff that is more regularly focused on. So for example, we have 2 size 2 coolers, 2 size 2 power plants, 1 size 3 generator, which is what this little bugger is, which is quite impressive. And if we go to the propulsion systems, we have 1 size 2 quantum drive, which is pretty nice. There's also a listing of all the different... for context, I'm using Star Citizen tools as my initial sort of guide through. I'll go into the weaponry once we have completed the tour of this. So you go from the cargo bay, which is quite Spartan in appearance, and also the components which are now exposed. And now in 3.19, you can use a tractor beam to get the fucking the materials out of the vessel, like the components out of the vessel, and put them into other ships, which is pretty cool. So we go from the cargo bay to what I'm going to call the roundabout, because basically you've got this central sort of pillar here, and well, you've got a couple of junctions on the roundabout, the one to the right and one to the front. So obviously more components, the coolers and the whatnot. Battery systems as well, all accessible for repairs, which is quite nice. To the right, you enter into what is the docking section, which, as you can see, nice open hall. And what we have is a couple of suit storages, so again, room for 4. I don't know what this is. I want to say it's something to do with quarantine, because you kind of, if you stand in sideways, can sort of fit that through. And there is also a drainage system. I have no idea what this is, but it's there, so hey ho. But no, we have a weapons rack along here. We have a few other little bits and bobs here. Here we also have an engineering station, what I believe is an engineering station, considering when you look into this particular thing, we also have a gravity generator, which at the moment is not functional. But once the game gets further into development, gravitational fields are going to be something that's going to be quite important, which is pretty cool. Going into the next room, we are introduced to the crew quarters and the crew R&R section. You've got 3 beds, obviously, as part of the crew. Oh, look, we've got another player as well. And we also have a rather reasonable table. 1 shit shower, but there is a luxury in a interplanetary because we have a retractable toilet, which, you know, we're being fancy knowing Drake Interplanetary. Yes, and as you can see throughout the entirety of the ship, there is no paneling, there's no snazzy thing. Everything to do with style or prettiness is kind of ignored. This is a Drake ship. You are here to fly, not to look good. You can hope to look good when you're flying, but, you know, that's a whole separate category. And now we go to possibly one of my favorite things in the Corsair. I don't quite know how to describe the word. I don't know how to describe it in terms of words. So I'm just going to call this the roof lift. Because as you can see, we've got 3 panels, or we've got 3 levers here, which allows us to specifically in this, on the left-hand side case, get to the roof. In the middle, it just basically goes to the mess hall. And on the right-hand side, which is also conveniently colored red, is the surface lift, which obviously, if you're flying through the verse, is kind of fucking terrifying if you think about it. To be fair, it's also kind of terrifying being on the roof, because I actually have been on the roof of this vessel in the verse. Back when 3.18 had just started, my friend and I basically were trying to get into a Valkyrie, completely illegally, by the way. And we ended up trying to sort of hock into the side and get to see if I can activate the buttons on the side of the vessel to be able to open the doors up. And yeah, legit, he basically flew within a few feet of the Vulture, and I'm sort of like on the edge of fucking space. Like there's nothing but planet down below, and I'm looking up at this bloody Valkyrie that's been derelicted. And oh my god, it was such an incredible experience, because it was, you know, if I had vertigo, Jesus Christ, that was terrifying, and I've lost the thing. But it's fine because I can... No, I don't want to rent it. No. Where's the button to get up? Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, there's the button. Oh, it actually has a little thing for it. Cool. So yeah, this thing is pretty freaking cool, if not pretty fucking terrifying. So, lower it down. And whoop. We open it up. Going into here. Going along. There we go. And as you can see, we have the gunner seats, so easy access for that. Captain's quarters, pretty much the same as every other quarters, except it's going lengthways rather than widthways, so that's pretty nice. And we now come to the pilot seat, which, I'm not going to lie, the pilot seat, if we come into here, is pretty alright. It just about passes the MFD test, which, when I say, for context, the MFD test is basically the ability for you to see all of the MFDs that are available without requiring you to look down or using, for those who don't use Track IR, without you having to press Z and looking around your MFD sort of cockpit. So it sort of passes. There's only a couple that are kind of without, there's only a couple that are like just in the realms of visibility along that sort of sector there. But you've also got a pretty interactable cockpit as well. You've got the scan modes, you've got the different little buttons here. There's also a button here which allows you to extend the wings, but obviously because we're in a showroom floor, it's not going to work the same as an actual rentable or flyable one. And there's a few other little doohickeys here and there that does some sort of cool stuff. So all in all, it's a pretty decent aircraft. We have a whole host of weapons. Speaking of which, I'm actually going to go on to the weapons now. So in terms of ordnance, we'll start with the missiles. You've got about 2 size 3... So there's a number of missile racks along here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 size 4 missile racks. Each of them containing 2 size 3 missiles. So 2, 4, 6, 8 size 3 missiles. The Arrestor 3 size missiles. Going into the remote turret, you have a 2 size 2 Badger repeaters, which is what you saw in the back. For the man turret, you have 2 size 2 Badger Badger and repeaters. So effectively, you've got 2 size 2. Basically, there's the 2 bog standard Badger repeaters, but obviously you can customize. For the pilot weapons, you've got a size 4 gimbal mount. So a lot of these weapons are all gimbaled. So you could probably, quite easily, upgrade them and get the fixed weapons, which I'm actually really liking the sound of this Vetcrest. This is making me want to get this ship, by the way. I'm honestly thinking about getting this ship. You've got, you've got 1, 2, yeah, about 2 size 3 M5A cannons, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 size 5 gimbals with 1, 2, 3, 4 size 4 M6A cannons. So again, all of the weapons in front of you at the moment are currently gimbaled, which means if you remove the gimbal mount and the Law of Star Citizen, you can upgrade to a size thing. So you have the capacity for size 5 weapons on this thing. Oh, beautiful. Another really awesome thing here is you get access when you go to the co-pilot seat. You can go, wah! And you end up, even with the noise, you can also fly the ship in this lower view as well. And also it has a bunch of MFDs, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I am really liking this ship. I said, I do like this ship. It's a very nice looking ship. And it also gives you the ability to alternate between you taking off from space to ground. You have the ability to alternate, if you're flying solo, the ability for you to alternate between you can alternate between going high space towards... So you can alternate between going from space, flying around there, to I want to land, so I'm going to go into the co-pilot seat, which is a pretty cool thing. So I'm going to go into here, roll through to here, enter into here, and there we go. So this particular craft, as said, it is quite beautiful in terms of how it works. I'm not going to lie, looking at the weapons now and researching up all this stuff, I'm a simple man. I see weapon sizes and I note that it's gimbaled, which means, ooh, I can do something with that. So yeah, I like the sound of that. That looks kind of cool. I wonder if that's fixed or not. It looks fixed, but I'd like to do more. I mean, to be fair, looking at Star Citizen tools, if it's wrong, then it looks fixed. But that might be a gimbal mount. We'll have to have a look. See, I'd have to rent it and have a look. See if I, can I actually? I might rent this, but I'll do some. I'll do if I need to make an additional video. If I actually want to start doing reviews on ships, I definitely will start looking into that. So definitely a big thoughts for that one. So now on to my second the second ship in the lineup, but my favorite ship currently of Drake Interplanetary, the Drake Vulture. So the Drake Vulture is a salvage vessel, or what I'm hoping to bring from the word from Foxhole, scrooping, basically where you're gathering up salvage for, well, in the eyes of Foxhole, to gather to make equipment and weapons for profit for your army. In Star Citizen cases, I'm going to be gathering scroop to make profit for my own thing or for the org. So whichever you want to go for in that regard. But still, no, the Venture is a very, very beautiful vessel. And if you've ever felt that you've seen this kind of ship before, or you've heard about some kind of thing, well, this ship is kind of somewhat infamous because it also kind of very much looks like the vessel known as the Venture from EVE Online. Now, there are, of course, certain differences, and the Star Citizen or CIG have stated that they were inspired by such vessels as the Drake Interplanetary Dragonfly, which, okay, sure, but if I'm going to go out on a limb here, I'm going to say this looks more like the Venture than it does the Dragonfly. Just saying. But that does not mean I don't like the ship design being in Star Citizen, because while in EVE Online you could fly around in the Venture and do some more funky stuff with that, the Vulture does more and is viewable from a first-person perspective. So, one up on EVE Online, in my opinion. But, you know, that's just me. This particular vessel, as said, is the first of its kind in terms of ease of access. I know the Reclaimer is technically the first to be to utilize mining, but considering that it didn't actually have a use until 3.18, I'm going to say that the Vulture is kind of the first implemented with functionality at the core. The Reclaimer, while it is going to be the first of its kind to have the munching facilities involved, so Reclaimer's still going to have some pretty big props there, I don't feel the Reclaimer should have the big spotlight on it because, well, it was in the game doing fuck all for years, and now it finally has a use. Whereas now this ship, fresh off the bat, new systems involved, looking gorgeous, easy to work with. This is the first dedicated scrooping vessel in Star Citizen, and I'm gonna fight me on this hill because I kind of feel like this ship, it's new, it's flashy, it does all the tricks. As I've just said, you know, it was straight up ground up. So sorry, Reclaimer fans, I appreciate your ship is nice, it looks cool from Alien, but it's been spending a long time doing nothing, whereas this ship was off the beat and into action. So, now that I've set fire to the community, we're now going to go over to some of the systems and avionics. So if we open up the button door on the side there we go. Perfect. So, VTOL thrusters, which is quite useful considering what kind of work we're going to be working, in. And going on into the cargo bay, to the cargo bay, you will notice a little thoroughfare and a path. This area has about 12 SCUs worth of cargo, if I'm not mistaken, primarily because it's like you can get about 4 crates of scroop, which you can stack. You can basically get 2 in a particular line, and then you can stack 2 additional on top of them. So it will be 4, 8, 12. I believe it was about 12. So 16. Trying to look on Star Citizen tools for the actual specifications just to double check. If memory serves correctly, it is about 12. Yes, it is 12. I was right. So yes, 12 SCUs worth of cargo, which is it's a pretty nice amount of cargo considering the size of the cargo bay. We won't go super hardcore into how the scrooping mechanics work, but to simply put, how it works is you scroop up the materials until the bar in this thing gets full, and then you can set it inside this particular device here to automatically eject the 1 SCU's worth of scroop when it's full. So it squishes it down, comes out to here, and then requires someone to move it. But the cool thing with this particular device, and this is something that the Vulture is doing for the first time, and I'm really fucking hoping it catches on, is it allows you to actually create items as well. So as you can see here, depending on how much scroop you have available with you, you can actually make equipment and tools from the scroop. Don't ask me how salvage from a side of a vessel is going to do that, but you know what? This is where you can say, shush, space magic, let's go. And yeah, this thing can actually do that, and it's really fucking cool. So even if you don't know what you're doing and you think, oh shit, I didn't bring a tractor beam tool, no fear, my man. You just gather scroop and you're good, which is a major bonus in that. The only downside when it comes to scrooping at the moment is that you have to, once you've done about 2 SCUs worth of scrooping, if you have the auto eject sequence, is you have to stop what you're doing, come down south into the cargo bay, use your tractor beam, pick the thing up, head over to this little section here on the battle grid, and then plop it down until you finally get the whole sort of process ended on that one. It's kind of tedious because it does mean you have to stop-start a lot of the time when it comes to scrooping, but at the same time, it is pretty cool that you can do that, so I'm not going to fault it too much. But hopefully a more automated system will perhaps come into the future with higher quality and different vessels. So there you go. What the hell? Oh, it's a tractor beam attachment. Well, that's mine. I am a goblin. So if we're going over into the components, which I do believe you can actually see here, we have some shield generators, so there are some component buttons. There we go. So in terms of avionics and systems, we have a size 2 coolers. So sorry, 2 size 1 coolers, 2 size 1 power plants, and 2 size 1 shield generators, which, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's a fuel tank. Nice. So, and if we go into the propulsion systems, we have 1 size 1 quantum drive, and, well, that's about it, really. It's not a dedicated combat vessel, shall we say. We have a gravity generator, so there's the coolers, there's the power plants, and inside we go from the ladder, which takes us up into this thing. There is some more gizmos. There's a slightly nice little bed here, so you can bed log if you want. There's the shit shower for all things important. So you have the abilities to survive in the verse as and when you need to. And if you make your way across to this little section here, got a few more cubby holes as well, which is pretty cool. Is this the scanner? Yeah, the scanners and radar. Nice. It's actually pretty cool. So you can actually hop into the ground vessel as well. And as we sort of park ourselves on this little thingamabob here. So as you can see, when it comes to the pilot's view, it's not too dissimilar from a prospector. You have a slightly better view to the left-hand side because, well, as you can see by the lack of any door, there's actually an opening and an entrance to the side of the vessel that way. You don't get quite a good view to the right, but to be fair, when you're scrooping, you're not really looking all around you. It's not like, for example, the prospector, where you're on the hunt for mining minerals and materials. You're unfortunately all just focusing on gathering up bits of scroop for the scroop gods, which, you know, makes sense, as well as a few other things. So yes, definitely a pretty nice view. And yeah, and also having flown this particular vessel a number of times, I can tell you it's quite maneuverable, surprisingly so, for a craft of this size. It's not good at stopping, I'll be honest with you. That's the one thing I found that's a problem. In fact, unfortunately, with my current vessel, I fucked up, crashed the vessel, and forgot to, and I ended up losing one of the pylons for my my ship because I was going a bit too fast going into the hangar bay, and I've lost one of the fucking I've lost one of the scroopers, so I'm gonna have to go buy a new one, which, well done, Mr. Jaeger, you fucking idiot. Oh, lessons to be learned, lessons to be learned. But no, despite the lacking of a decent brake pedal, she is actually quite a maneuverable craft, and when you want to get out of dodge pretty quickly, she is quite versatile in doing so. So very much a big fan of that particular factor. And as mentioned, we can now leave the craft and head onto the side of the door, and there's a ladder which allows you to hop onto the vehicle from the side. So in terms of like a craft or a particular thing that in terms of like what this craft is meant for and what the craft can do for the future, I love it. I personally am a big fan of industrial stuff in this game. Scrooping, mining, all that jazz. I'm a big fan. I find that this is definitely a ship that if you're into Star Citizen, but you're not really so fussed about the shooty shoot, then definitely look at the Vulture, because it definitely is a ship that you will have a lot of fun in, and will definitely earn you back the credits. Because scrooping does have quite a bit of value. Just learn where to look, and you can easily get yourself about 7,000 per SCU's worth of cargo. If they haven't nerfed it, of course. So, a bit of a quick tour going on to the middle of the room. We are introduced to one of the flagship ground vehicles for Drake Interplanetary. This is the Dragonfly, the supposed inspiration for the Vulture. But regardless, it is a pretty nifty little ground vic. Now, I'm not a huge fan of skimmer bikes, to be brutally honest with you. It's not a bad vehicle, but again, I'm not exactly a huge fan of it. But if we hop into the vehicle, as you can see, it's got a few little views here or there. So, as I said, it's a ground vic, so there's not really a huge amount of verse. It's a single-person vessel with a number of equipment, so I'll just list off the stuff. You've got one size 0 cooler, one size 0 power plant, one size 0 shield generator. So there is a shield generator, just not much of one. Obviously it's a skimmer bike, so obviously it's going to be quite quick across the things. Though the danger with skimmer bikes is if you're not careful, you can plow yourself straight into a mountain or a rock or anything that's slightly taller than you, and it will be painful. This isn't nearly as bad as the Nox. So that vessel being fucking terrifying in its own right. But no, it's not as bad as the Nox. It's a little bit more noob-friendly. But the time I remember flying around with these particular things, they were just painful if you didn't know what you were doing. This one was more forgiving, but you could still do it if you wanted to kill yourself. You could easily do so. In terms of weapons, you've got a couple of size 1 scatter guns. So, again, not really useful for a ground vic. Shotguns, at least, I mean, admittedly, because you're on a planet, it's like slightly better. And I mean, to be fair, I am kind of shitting on these, but a few years ago, I will be fair, these things are quite effective. If utilized correctly and tactically, they are pretty effective. But again, it's a skimmer bike. It doesn't really do much. It does have a couple of internal cargo, which if I go up towards this little thing, you can mount a passenger seat as well. So if I was to open the storage, you do get like a reasonable size storage in turn of that. So, you know, if you're on the ground and you're wanting to like get some supplies or doing like a quick mission, that's fine. I would argue if you're on the ground and you've got a reasonable sized craft, I would suggest taking a different ground vic. Now, obviously, depending on what situation you have, maybe a larger ground vic may not be as applicable, but I feel like, well, at the moment, though there is talk, as I say, there is talk actually at the moment in CIG terms of making ground vehicles more applicable by making the weather more adverse to fire to ships. So maybe there's going to be a use for ground vics, but at the same time, I also feel, again, if you can do it, just get yourself a ship. Ships are better in that regard, but still, that's my own personal opinion. Going on to another ship, which, in my opinion, is kind of like beautiful, but also optimism. Is beautiful and it's orky in its design philosophy. Is of course the Drake Interplanetary Buccaneer. The Buccaneer is a single-seat fighter with, again, orc-like mentality in regards to its design philosophy. It's basically 2 giant engines, and if we go into the avionics and systems, you've got 2 size 1 coolers, 1 size 1 power plant, 2 size 1 shield generators. In terms of propulsion, it's got 2 fucking giant I mean, look at the fucking size of these thrusters. These are the kind of thrusters that you see on a Drake Interplanetary. In fact, I think you can see it to a degree. They're almost the same size as the one. They're like half the size of the ones you get on the bloody Cutlass Black. So, yeah, no. These things are fucking mental. But it's not also just how fast this thing goes, because this thing can go bloody fast. It's like more like 1,300 meters per second in space, which is fast. Very fast. So going on into weapons, in terms of missile racks, we've got two size 3 missile racks with with 4 size 2 missiles, both being different types each. We've got one that's like, I think, the cluster missile, one which is we've got two, on both missile racks, we've got one Ignite 2, one Tempest 2. I'm not super knowledgeable on missile type, so I don't know the implications of that. I do recall a few years ago when I was flying around with it, this particular vessel had cluster missiles, which basically would blind anyone who was engaging them, so that's pretty cool. In terms of weapons that the pilots can use, you have two size 1 yellow jacket DAKKAs on the side, which is pretty cool. Two size 3 repeaters, which are these little buttes. And finally, you have a size 4 Revenant Gatling gun on the top. It is kind of ridiculous, I'm not going to lie. Definitely a fun time to be had when flying this vessel. Now, the big thing... Interesting thing, Star Citizen. Now, the big thing when it comes to this particular ship is that it's very much a glass cannon. It's very much a case of if you get shot at for more than 2 seconds, and if any of those shots hit, the likelihood of you surviving will very much depend on whether or not your shields are on. Because if you don't have your shields on, you fucked. Like, full on, you're dead. There is almost no hope when it comes to getting shot to shit by this particular game. This particular craft, if you are to get into this vessel, and I do like this vessel. Again, it's one of those ships that I would most definitely. I own this vessel, and I fell in love with it the moment I saw it, and I love flying around with it, and it's a lot of fun. But I won't lie, it is very much a case of if you get hit, you will die. So take that into consideration. If you're more of a sort of sluggerfest kind of pilot when it comes to shooting shit, this probably isn't the vehicle for you. But if you like ducking, weaving, and diving, and also pure DAKKA with your pure speed, then yeah, no, the Drake Interplanetary Buccaneer is the ship for you, and most definitely has a particular it has that charm, which I can't lie, I love. It's bold, it's beautiful, and it definitely has that sort of presence that few fighters have. I would say the fighters inside there, definitely, few fighters have that, which is awesome. Going from a fighter to a interesting design, we're going to talk about the Herald. Now, I won't go too in-depth because I did visit the Herald quite a bit in the previous IAE, so I'll go more in-depth with this IAE, but I'll also talk about the specifications. So the Drake Herald is a ship that at the moment doesn't really have a use, sadly, but I think in the near future it will be very useful, because this particular ship is a data information ship, or an information ship. You know, they're trying to find the official terminology for this particular thing. I'm just going to call... Yeah, it's listed on the website of Star Citizen Tools. It's a medium data. Now, what that means by medium data is that it's basically the purpose of this ship is that you are meant to get from A to B as fast as possible and transmit data which is stored inside the ship. So basically, you're flying around in space. Someone says, hey, look, I've got a job for you. I have some data plans. Let's say I've got a wedding that's going to be happening on Stanton, on Ariel, for some reason, and I need someone to deliver the wedding invitations to the sensor net and then, you know, get that stuff sorted. So you would receive the data into the ship, you would fly as fast as you can, dodging all the pirates, because apparently there's a massive sort of thing against this wedding, with this giant fuck-off engine. It is literally, I want to yeet. I will yeet. You know, I am the personification of yeet, and I love it. I love big engines on ships like this. Call me a simple man, but when you see power and engines and thrust, yeah, it is most definitely something to keep an eye out for. In terms of specifications, as you can see, she's not very well armed. We've got, well, for avionics and systems, we've got a 1 size 1 radar, 2 size 1 coolers, 1 size 1 power plant, and 2 size 1 shield generators, with propulsion, giant fuck-off engine, 1 size 1 quantum drive, and in terms of weapons and equipment, very piss poor. You've got one size 3 missile rack with 4 size 1 missiles, which is intriguing. So you theoretically could put a size... You could increase the missile size at least, so you can have a little bit more of a bite to you. And in terms of pilot weapons, you've got a size 1 gimbal... Well, sorry, size 2 gimbal mount with size 1 repeaters. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3. To be fair, actually no. There's two size. So there's got 2 size 1 gimbal mounts on the side wings there. So that's fine. So you got the size. So you could increase those to size 2. So that's not bad. And you do have a size 3 gimbal mount with a size 2 Gatling laser. So again, if you decide you want to make this thing into a combat vessel, I wouldn't recommend it. You could definitely turn this into a bit more of a packing of the punch. It's just, you're not going to do a huge amount in terms of combat. This thing will not live in combat. And it's quite a slim aircraft. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll note that it is actually quite a slim aircraft. Unfortunately, you don't really see this vessel flying around at the moment because there's no real data roll options for you. But once the data missions become a bit more of an applicable thing, which requires you to actually have the ship of the Herald, then this ship is definitely going to become a lot more useful, and I feel like finally this vessel is going to get the justice it deserves, because I personally find it aesthetically pleasing. I like the concept of the ship. It feels pretty cool, and it's always just sort of been there as a kind of, oh, I really like seeing this craft because it looks cool. So yeah, it looks cool. Doesn't have a real option yet, but once it does, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Speaking about ships with potential, let's talk about this little beauty, the Drake Cutter. So, the Drake Cutter. This little vessel. And to be fair, this little vessel is actually something that I personally feel is a really good addition to Star Citizen, and most definitely gives the player who wishes to start their time in Star Citizen much more of a range to play around in. I would argue that this is the first vessel that I kind of wish that the game was making it slightly cheaper, because this particular ship is really, well, I wouldn't say the best starter ship in the game, but this particular ship is something that, having owned it and flown it and done stuff with it, I think it's a really fucking good ship to start out with, and easily is better than the Aurora. Like, with this ship, kind of, it came out of nowhere. At 317, it kind of was just like, here's the cutter, and I'm like, what the fuck? And it just literally came. I was honest to God, I didn't even realize it was out and in the verse until, like, what, almost a week went by? And I was like, what the fuck is this ship? And yeah, it is. It's there. It's 100% there and beautiful. And I have to say, it's a big win for me. It's a big thing for me, because for me, I like the concept of being, whenever I talk about ships in Star Citizen, and when I'm talking about it to new people who are interested, I like to talk about the options that are within a reasonable price margin. And a lot of the time you get ships that are kind of majorly flawed in one way or another. For example, the Aurora may have a bed, but it's kind of limited in what it can do. The Mustang doesn't have a bed, and while it's very good at combat, it can't really do anything with cargo. This ship, while it's not going to be killing anyone anytime soon, it is going to do some pretty fucking cool things regardless. So let's have a look at the cutter. It is a VTOL vessel with its 2 rather nice thrusters on the side. Power is definitely going to be something that this vessel is going to have when it comes to thrust. You also have 4 SCUs worth of cargo. So you have, it's got a big thing. And for me, I would say this is one of the big things about Star Citizen, especially for a new player. You want that cargo bay. You want to feel like you're entering into a ship properly. And the best way you can do that in a sci-fi game is to have a cargo bay. So to have your own little walk-in cargo bay with the ability for you to put shit down into a bay section like so is pretty fucking cool. The next big thing about this ship that I like is it's a bed logger. So immediately you've got a cargo bay, a bed logging, you're doing pretty good. You've got also a shit shower, which is, again, pretty good, considering there's hygiene mechanics that are apparently coming into the game. Fuck my life. You have internal capacity to survive on your own. Again, big fucking win. And then to top it all off, you have your own fucking internal cargo bay. You have an external storage which has a fuck ton of stuff inside. So you can drag bodies from when you've killed the pirates or innocents or whoever. You're Drake, you don't care who. You can dump all their bodies inside the ship, and then you can load the stuff into the internal cargo bay. This is fucking... This is what makes this ship so much better than the Aurora, and it's cheap. It's cheap than the Avenger Titan, at least. And again, it offers so much for a new player who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Weapons racked to the side, cubbyhole storage, whatever. It just gives the player so much to work with. And then when we're going over to the seat, you get even more versatility, because then you get, you know, it's a simple ship concept. You've got only a few MFDs to worry about, a nice little view to the sides. Oh, and one of my favorite little things about this cockpit. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There. I knew it was somewhere. Oh, there it is. Whoom. You can actually deploy the armor. Yeah, there's canopy armor that retracts. There's canopy armor, which I don't think works in the unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work in the showroom version. But on the side canopies, so basically these windows here, you end up getting canopy armor, which obviously at the moment, I think, to be fair, it makes it pretty fucking cool when it comes to canopy usage and that. Without the canopy armor, it's actually got a pretty decent view. You have a nice little upwards view as well, so if you're looking up to be able to get out of the space station, or if you're wanting to look around, you can't really see below you, which is a fair point, which the Aurora does beat you in that regard. But considering you've got a cargo bay, you've got internal storage, a shit shower, a bed to log in and out of, 3 out of 5 is not exactly a win for the Aurora. 2 out of 5 is not exactly a win for the Aurora. The Drake Interplanetary Cutter does have it. Speaking on things that it has, we'll talk about the gizmos inside. So you've got one size 1 radar, one size 1 cooler, one size 1 power plant, one size 1 shield generator going on into propulsion and thrusters. You've got one size 1 quantum drive and going on into the weaponry. You've got two size 2 missile racks with 2 size 1 missiles on each. So that's, you know, missile technology immediately, which is a pretty fucking big win. And then if we go towards the pilot weapons, which are at the front of the vessel, you've got 2 size 2 gimbal mounts, which means you have room to explore and expand your options for firepower. So, again, like, there is so much to this craft that I like, because it offers so much to a newer player. Now, does that mean it's better than the Avenger Titan? Of course not. As much as I would love to say it does beat the Avenger Titan, the Avenger Titan has 8 SCUs worth of cargo. It's got size 3 weapons. It has also an array. It also has multiple. It's got size 3 gimbaled with a size 4 mount. You've got size 2 weapons on the wings. It handles and feels like a plane. You've got larger missiles. But if you're looking for a budget Titan, I can't imagine a better ship for it. It is beautiful. Yes, I realize it's not a looker for most people, but it's a beautiful ship for what it does. It functions so well. To be fair, in my personal opinion, this and the Cutlass Black impersonate. What the fuck is that word? Not improvise. The Drake Interplanetary Cutlass Black and the Cutter personify. There we go. Drake Interplanetary. They are useful, they are practical, they may not look good, but fuck do they work well. And I cannot recommend this ship. If anyone ever talks about getting into Star Citizen, my big thing would be, if you can, get the Cutter. Because you get a much better introduction to the Star Citizen universe with this ship, and then eventually you can upgrade to the Avenger Titan. I mean, obviously, if you can upgrade to the Avenger Titan straight up, then, yeah, go for the Avenger Titan. But if you're on a bit of a budget, you don't want to spend so much money, get the Cutter. It is so much better. It works so much better. And maybe I'm biased in this, maybe I don't. Let me know in the comment section down below. But get the Cutter. As we make our way down towards the one half of the hall before we rush, well, I say rush, but we'll be getting through the Cutlass Black series a little bit faster since there's lots of them and we don't want to be here forever. So, going on into the end of the hall, I will talk about this particular vessel, the Drake Interplanetary Caterpillar. Now, this is a pretty beautiful ship, and for a very long time, she was the largest ship you could have cargo hauling capacities for. This is a... wow, is it really... okay, yeah, I'm going to have to go the other way around. So, the Drake Interplanetary Caterpillar is a rather unique design ship, because technically speaking, it's one of those ones that you can actually detach from the ship into and be able to fly off with a command module, which is why the command module is located at the side of the ship. So, this particular ship has quite a large capacity of stuff to... let me just quickly go down. This particular vessel has a large cargo grid of 576 SCUs worth of cargo, which is pretty impressive. The other thing that makes this vessel quite impressive also is that it's quite modular in its design philosophy, because each of these particular sections can be utilized either for cargo capacity, or you could modularize it into a medical bay, refinery, all sorts. All of these particular things you can do with the Drake Interplanetary Caterpillar. At the moment, you can pretty much only utilize it for cargo hauling. And as mentioned, for a very long time, it was the cargo hauler. This was the ship that you would have, that you would basically focus on... that looks like a bad design flaw, because that's going to get burnt. But anyway, as mentioned, this is its own... actually, no, wait, that's not active, is it? Because that's the engines that are active, because that's only active when you are flying away. Anyway, so going on into this particular ship's history, yeah, it's quite a famous vessel, because a lot of players who were cargo haulers would utilize this as the be-all and end-all. Oh, okay, we've lost a few people here. Rest in peace. And it was one of the ships that, unfortunately, well, actually, fortunately and unfortunately, did actually necessitate multiple players, if they were getting hit a lot by other players and pirates. You did actually need other players to man the turrets on this thing. So this was one of the other kind of multi-crew gameplay loops. Not as dedicated as, say, the Hammerhead, but definitely necessitated other players who wanted to get profit to get involved with things. So, all in all, a pretty fucking nice vessel in that one. I did go through a massive sort of tour during the IAE Expo last year, and I will be doing so again, but because this is more militarily focused in terms of industrial, we will just list off the components whilst also walking underneath and around. So in terms of components, we've got three size 2 radars, 2 size 3 coolers, 2 size 3 power plants, 2 size 3 shield generators. In terms of propulsion, we have a 1 size 3 quantum drive, and in terms of weaponry, it's primarily turrets on this one. You've got, on the turret side of things, you've got 2 size 3 M5A cannons. So 1, 2. Actually, you got 1 size 5 turret with size 3 M5A cannons. You've got a size 6 turret with size 4, 2 size 4 Rhino repeaters, which is pretty impressive. And another size 6 turret, which has got 4 Rhino repeaters, which is pretty nice. For pilot-controlled weapons, which they are around on here, you've got 2 size 3 gimbals with 2 size 2 M5A cannons. So these little things are over here. So from what I can read onto the systems. So pretty impressive firepower, if I may say so myself. And as mentioned, this particular module is detachable. Quite famously, in fact, one of the pirate organization, I think one of the first real pirates to utilize Drake Interplanetary for nefarious means, basically rammed into a cruise liner using the Drake Interplanetary's modular frame to effectively hold the ship hostage, because obviously if the if they were to back up out of the now crippled vessel, the vacuum would kill all the people on board. So what they did was they simply robbed everyone blind on the cruise liner and then detached the command module, which is the little doohickey here, and then they floated off into space doing whatever they wanted whilst leaving the ship that had now been crippled, dead in the water, and basically helpless for a while until police and naval forces came to rescue them. So, yes, this particular vessel may have a bit of a checkered history, but in terms of Star Citizen gameplay, it's also quite a nice history, because while, yes, sadly, she's no longer the queen of cargo transportation, she still has the capacity to do quite a bit of work for the Stanton system. For those who may not want to have a Crusader in their life, but prefer to have a Cutlass, have a Drake interplanetary feel as well. So, now that we've cleared one side of the room, we now go to the other side of the room, and in front of me is a ship that pretty much needs no introduction, as it's kind of one of the most commonly found ships in Star Citizen, one would argue. And my begrudgingly, aggressive begrudging intensifying at this point, because obviously this fucking ship, I'm going to go on a slight tangent. This fucking ship is the answer to so many fucking questions. It's like... Sargon. So, now that we've cleared one half of the verse, we now are presented with a ship that pretty much needs no introduction, but I'll give you the name anyway. The Cutlass Black. This fucking ship. This ship, pretty much the most common ship in the verse, and the answer to so many questions that just, it irritates the living fuck out of me. Because I want to hate this ship. I want to say that there are ships better than this ship. I want to say to people, no, don't go for that, go for this. But I can't, because it answers so many fucking questions. It's like, hey, I want to fly a ship which has a reasonable amount of cargo space that's maneuverable. Cutlass Black. Hey, I've got a friend of mine who doesn't know a Star Citizen but is willing to try during a free fly event, and I want to do some low-key bounties with him. Cutlass Black. It's not even an answer to a question. It's a solution to a problem. It's literally, I want to mine with a grey cat ROC, Cutlass Black. I want to mine, I want to do low-key bounties, Cutlass Black. I want to do bunker missions, Cutlass Black. I want to do Cutlass Black. I want to breathe, Cutlass fucking Black. It literally answers so many goddamn questions, and it irritates the living fuck out of me that I can't find a tangible reason to say, no, don't go for the Cutlass Black. It's reasonably priced, only 100 quid in pounds. It's got a turret for 2-player accessibility, so again, fun multi-crew gameplay. It's got quite a vast array of equipment and missiles. It's got VTOL thrusters, making it easier to fly in Atmo. It's got 2 cargo bay doors, which means if you want to board someone, you can do so. It has the fucking... Oh, it's a nice-looking craft. It's got versatility. It answers so many fucking questions. I want to hate it. I've got it in my fucking hangar because it just works so goddamn well. Oh, it's really quite frustrating how this fucking vessel just continues to endure years after its deployment, and it's still so fucking relevant. It's tangent over, but fucking hell, this thing is a good aircraft, and I wish it wasn't, because then I could recommend other vessels. Damn it. Anyway, so let's have a quick tour of this vessel. Now, I'm going to kind of skim through a few of these things, because a lot of them, while they do have certain designs internally differently, they are more or less the shapes. With the exception of, say, the Cutlass Rescue and the Cutlass Red and the Blue, they are more or less the same ship. So the Cutlass Black, very versatile, very effective craft, and utilized by all players and bounty bandits as well. So if we're going into the avionics specifications, she has 3 size 2 radars, 2 size 2 coolers, 1 size 2 power plant, 1 size 2 shield generator. If we go into the thrusters and specifications, as said, VTOL thrusters, so these things are quite versatile in that regard. 1 size 2 quantum drive, which gives it fucking great levels of great levels of range for a cheapest aircraft. And if we go into the cargo bay, we do have... Again, this is a fairly old-style vessel, so there are some older mechanics involved. But as you can see, we have a pretty decent cargo space. And in terms of cargo space, yeah, 46 SCUs worth of cargo. So you can store a pretty reasonable amount of things. So again, people, ships, and whatnot. I said you can drive in the ROC with the pike nose issue being a factor. I am going to be in the process after IAE of doing some mining with the ground VIX to see if it's actually better to do it with the ROC or the ROC DS, but that'll be for another time. So watch this space in that regard. And you've got seats on the side as well. If you've got more than like 2 players, you go into this ship, into here. The only big flaw of this ship, in my opinion, and I think a fair amount of other people as well, is this dead space here. This feels like dead space, and it is dead space. There's no real benefit to this being here. So, yeah, not that impressive. You have access to the turret from the top to put 2 seats. Let's go. You've got a weapons rack on the side. And even if we go into the fucking pilot seat, it raises it up, which gives you a great field of view in terms of that. You've got a couple of struts here and there, but you have a massive field of view, including down below you. It passes the MFD test with flying fucking colors. Oh, God. I'm exasperated by just how fucking much I can't argue against the... It's so hard. Like, I fight against it. You could say, oh, why don't you just love the ship? It answers all the questions and it fulfills everything. But it's like, no, it means no one else will fly it. No one will fly anything else. Oh, God. It answers too many fucking questions. And it just irritates the living shit out of me that it works so goddamn well. Like, if you're a new Star Citizen player and you feel like you want to take up a bit of a bigger mantle, you're feeling like you want to contribute towards the game a bit more, and so you want to get yourself a big ship, then the fucking Drake Interplanetary Cutlass Black will be your first major upgrade. Like, this will be the first thing that puts you over £100. And god fucking damn it if it doesn't work so well. I despair. I'm driven to despair. Speaking of being driven to despair, let's talk about the Cutlass Steel. And let's replace one of the E's with an A. Because this ship is kind of a piss take, to be brutally honest with you. Like, legit, when this first came out, yeah. Oh, shit, I didn't talk about the weapons. Right, apologies. We'll go back to this one for a second. My inner bias was fighting against me not to talk about the weapons. Yeah, let's talk about the weapons. For the Cutlass Black, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4 size 4 missile racks with 4 size 3 arrestor missiles and 4 size 2 Tempest missiles. 6. Oh, fuck off, Cutlass Black. Sorry. So for missiles, you've got 2, 4, 6. Yes, 6 times size 3s and 8, 4, 8. Yeah, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, 8 size 2 missiles and 6 size 3 missiles. Like, fucking seriously. Apologies for the slight confusion. The way that the missile rack systems are laid out in the Star Citizen's Tools website, they don't quite order those sizes quite rightly, so it kind of fucks around with how I read it. But yeah, so you've got a fuck ton of missiles, both size 2 and size 3. So that's already quite a powerful potent. Then we talk about the weapons that are available to the pilot, which is you've got 1 size 3 gimbal. So 1, 2, 3, 4 size 3 gimbal mounts, so obviously you can upgrade towards. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 size 2 weapons, two of which being a size 2 Gatling guns. So that would be on... Didn't want to rent it because I'm already fucking owning it. It's one of the only times people are like, I don't want to rent this thing because I already own it. I believe you got the size 2 Gatlings on the top there. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there they are. Yeah, so the size 2 Gatlings up above and the 2 size 2 Badger repeaters on the bottom. So this thing is ridiculous. And in terms of its turret, you've got 2 size 3 Panther repeaters. So that fucking thing literally just doesn't do anything And I despair. I fucking despair because it just it's so irritating how much this bloody thing just answers the questions. Anyway, going back to the Cutlass Steel with an A. The Cutlass Steel with an A is a more militarized boarding style vessel. I believe the same level of armament for the things. I see size 2 on the top, size 2 on the side. The only difference is with this particular vessel, apart from its sort of rather ugly grey sort of thing, or steel as it would were, is on each side of the ship, or each side of the cargo bays, you've got one size 1 Gatling guns. So, there we go. We're just going to the cargo bay here, and on the back here we also have a cargo. We have also got a size 1 Gatling gun. So as you can see, this is more designed for troops in mind. But that's literally the only thing we have. We can have about a company's worth, platoon's worth of troops that are inside. This thing is stupidly expensive. It's like 200 quid, like over 200 quid for what is essentially a slightly more armed thing. Oh yes, and there's a size 2 remote turret at the back, but that's about it. That is literally it when it comes to the Cutlass Steel. And when this thing came out, everyone thought they were taking the piss. CIG were taking the piss, and it turns out, no, they were not. Going from a complete ridiculous piss take to a ship that earned quite a lot of love, especially from the clans, is the Cutlass Red. This is a hospital edition of a ship, which I have to open up manually. Okay. And it has 2 medical beds inside. Very simple, but very nice. When this ship first came out, it also was a medical vessel, which allows you to regen. Can you actually? Oh no, okay, you can't. For a second there, my brain was like, "What?" So yeah, no. Basically, it'll heal up to low-tier medical issues. So if you are slightly wounded, if you've taken a couple of hits, it will be able to help you. But if you've taken sufficient damage, it will sadly no longer revive you. But back in the day, it used to. A few years ago, it used to allow players to revive in the ship, and a lot of people loved using that ship as a sort of a quick revive vessel. Now, sadly, it's not so much the case, which is a bit of a shame. The only real differences in the cockpit is, well, apart from the weapons, which are slightly less now. So, you've not got so much weapons. You've got Panther repeaters for self-defense, but that's about it. The other sort of thing is that the turret has been replaced with a spotlight that the co-pilot can utilize. And going on into the last vessel, we have what is known as the Cutlass Blue. Because, obviously, the color of the we go towards the Cutlass Blue, which if we search onto the thing, just so I can get up the components, because as you can see, the Cutlass Blue does have quite a fair amount of differences. Not only does it have its nice little turret with its nice little gear, but we've also got a different host of weapons on board as well. The Cutlass Blue, though, is more for gathering materials and... well, it's more designed for gathering and capturing criminals than it was to doing some other stuff, which is quite useful. So for pilot-controlled weaponry, you've got what's known as a size 2 DR repeater, which is these things, which looks to be more... Yeah, it does looks a little bit more like... less of a... yeah, it does. It looks like it has a capturing capacity more than a killing capacity, which is pretty cool. Another thing which is pretty unique about this ship is that it does have a little dome on the back there, and it also has what's known as a quantum dampener, which basically reduces the ability or removes the ability for criminals to escape from justice, which is quite nice. So I'm going to open up the doors here. So yeah, the Cutlass Blue, utilized by the Advocacy, which is the policing force. And as we enter inside, you can see there is the pods in which criminals will be stored. Fairly similar in terms of design for... again, the design schematics are not too dissimilar, except the pilot gets a much better dome effect. with their glass. So if we were to hop into the Cutlass Blue, we actually get a very, very beautiful open dome concept here, which I am a big fan of. I do like this quite a bit. It looks really, really cool, and definitely has that kind of... I kind of wish you could opt for this on the Cutlass Black, because then that would make it even more awesome. And I can't believe I said that, but you know what I mean. It's the fucking Cutlass Black. A ship that I cannot fault at any point, and it's really quite irritating. Oh, will you piss off? It's like the screen's like, hey, look at the screen. It's a Cutlass. Fucking goddamn it. But anyway, yes, the Drake Interplanetary family. Quite a bit of variety, with the exception of the steel. And quite a fair amount of effectiveness. But all of these get tied back to, of course, the original OG, which has been in the game for so goddamn long. And despite all other vessels that have come and gone, new ships that have come into it and have become that were famed to be the big starters, the big things for vessels, have kind of fallen to the wayside. But this ship still remains just as irritatingly effective and useful as it was before. And god damn it, I can't find the right ways to describe it except, will you stop being so fucking useful, you goddamn majesty of design. Fuck. So, now that we've talked a lot about the Cutlass Black and pretty much everything inside this main room, we now go to the display hall. This is where all of the Drake Interplanetary future ships will be coming through and will be holographically displayed. Because I've not seen the floor plan for this particular place, I am 100% going blind into this, so I'm rather excited. I do like that. That might be what I'll have for the thumbnail there, because that looks like a pretty fucking good thumbnail, if I do say so myself. So, let us see what's inside, and... of course it's the Kraken. Or, as a video I saw one recently that I've kind of loved the pronunciation, the Kraken. That does seem suitable for this beautiful vessel. It is... Oh, I love it. Yeah, the Kraken is a majestic beauty. I am in love with this ship. So, the Kraken is basically a carrier, small carrier, player-flyable carrier. And, again, no fucking means for us to jump up and see how high it is, so we don't get to see what it's like, but fucking goddammit. So no, the Kraken is effectively a player-controlled base of operations. It's still in concept. It was announced back in 2018, and it has quite a large variety of ships. It's quite a pretty... I mean, unfortunately, as I said, because we can't really see a lot from this ground basement perspective, it's kind of hard to see the different hangar bays. But if we try and jump. No, yeah, we can't. So you can see from these little pads over here that what we can try and fucking see is the ability for us to, so you can see these particular hangar pads here, here, and here alongside the sort of main hangar thoroughfare dock over here. This particular vessel is designed to basically have a top sort of landing carrier sort of design mechanics, and on the smaller hangar bays, you can actually have a little hangar bay section that the pilots and the ships will go into, whereas the upper pad doesn't quite have that. And it basically allows for, it's to quote the website here, the Drake Interplanetary the Great Kraken is designed as a multi-role light carrier with comfortable habs for a full crew, mammoth cargo capacity, and enough armament to blow even the most daunting frigate out of the sky. This self-sustaining flying fortress is the most ambitious project Drake has ever undertaken, and a testament to the empowerment of the people. So, I won't go into the specifics in terms of specifications, because, well, it's a capital ship. So we've got capital bits of equipment, which is quite terrifying. But the unique thing about this particular vessel is it has internal hangars, a dragonfly bay, and another thing which obviously is quite appealing to some people is the ability to turn it into a merchant base. Because if you've ever heard of the Kraken, you'll have heard of the Privateer. Now, the Privateer basically scraps a large portion of the cargo capacity, which the Kraken's cargo capacity, if I can get the bloody things to move to the far right, does it not show? It does not show. Oh, sorry. Yeah, for capacity in terms of cargo, it's 3,792 SEUs worth of cargo. So, quite a bit. Basically, the Kraken Privateer, which basically halves the amount of cargo capacity, but instead replaces it with a series of rooms that you can have as vendors and salesmen. So you have the ability to basically dominate the verse or set up your own little section of the verse where you can make profit in. So both in all that regards are there, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to lie. I do hope one day we get to fly in this thing. Or more importantly, I do kind of want... I mean, there's three hopes. The first hope is that one day I'll own one of these vessels, because that is something that I do kind of want to get. I've been dreaming about it ever since I saw it in 2018. Another thing which I hope is that we can actually maybe not be able to fly it in the near future, but I would love to see have the ability for us to actually walk into into a Drake Kraken, because even if it was just similar to the whole javelin display thing that's going on with the Invictus Launch Week, I would love to be able to walk around on a Kraken and be like, yeah, this thing's real. I can walk on a fucking Kraken. It looks so goddamn good. We could actually even have a proper tour of the fucking Kraken as well, which would be phenomenal. I want it. And to note as well, one of my friends, my very good friend Mr. Nimbus, actually bought this thing, which, I think he was able to get this ship, and I'm jealous. I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of jealous. It is expensive. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is very expensive, but fuck if it's not a ship that I want to have. God damn it, I want this ship. I want this ship. To be fair, I think Nimbus, he purchased the Privateer edition, whereas I just want the normal edition because I like carriers, and I definitely want to get one. So yeah, I want it. One day, I will succeed in my determination of getting Star Citizen. I will have succeeded in my time playing Star Citizen by getting myself the Kraken. So, yeah, big fan of that, most definitely. And, I just want to... And that's pretty much it, yeah. So I just want to say thank you very much for watching this. And thank you very much for watching the entire Invictus Launch Week and DefenseCon event as well. It has been a bit of a rocky road with how things have been going with the recordings, the frame rates, the crashes, the lag, the bugs, all sorts. It's definitely not been the most smooth of transitions, for sure. But at the same time, it is quite an awesome experience to have done. And I do love these events. I realize they're probably not earning me a lot of views on YouTube, but I love doing them because I go back to them once in a while, and I look back and I sort of go, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. Or this was a feature that I was looking forward to, and now I get to enjoy it. You know, I remember back when I used to come through here, and I would look at the video, the holographic displays for the Corsair, or if I was talking about the holographic displays for the I would talk about the holographic displays for a whole bunch of other stuff. It is pretty fucking cool. Oh, there we go. So yeah, no, there's a lot of love to be had in this particular thing, and I do hope to catch you guys in the next one. I will be hoping to make some more Star Citizen videos in the future, but yeah, Invictus Launch Week, it's been a real blast, and it was night when I first started recording this, and it's day now. But what day? We will find out in the future. Anyway, I hope to catch you guys in the next one, and thank you once again for watching, and I will see you then. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.